Hi, this is Baby Doll. You're a perfect 10, and I'm in your head.
Talking about Chris Benoit, that brings up another thing we wanted to broach with you. Is what did you think of the later Horsemen groups?
Well, I guess I've been asked this question before, and I can't really draw a line and say that that I have fond feelings and was very supportive of the group up to a certain point, and then beyond this point, whatever that would be, didn't feel that way. But certainly, the original Horsemen will always be something very special, even though Ole Anderson, as part of the group, didn't have a lot of longevity. Luger followed in and did quite well, and then, of course, Barry Windham after that. And I think of all the groups of Horsemen in terms of pure talent, having everything covered, the Horsemen with Barry Windham, because he was a talented young athlete, great wrestler, great in the ring, great look, great everything, and he was definitely an asset to us. And at some point after that, the multiple changes, I think, were not good for the image of the Horsemen, and it got watered down after a while. But certainly the original Horsemen had some longevity with Luger, and certainly with Barry Windham with the times that I remember most fondly.
In your book, you refer to the Magic 3-year period.
And I think that's probably pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Was there one person who ended up being in one of the forms of the Horsemen that you really didn't think fit the mold?
I think there's a multitude of people that after Barry Windham, they came through the revolving door, and then it came in much greater numbers that we were down to a point that none of the original Horsemen were there. And it was just, I think, an attempt for someone to think that they could capitalize on the name, and maybe help elevate the careers of some of the new people coming in. And I've always said you can imitate something, but you certainly can never duplicate it. And I think that's what they tried to do, and I think that was a mistake.
Something you talk about in your book is early in your career you used to referee, and that you enjoyed refereeing for the midgets.
Yes, I did.
I don't know if you know this or not, but SmackDown on WWE, they've introduced a mini division, which is a midget division.
Yeah, I have seen that and following the news, and thought that was very interesting. But in world history, let alone the history of professional wrestling, things have a tendency to come full circle, and maybe that's what happened. The midgets at one time were a great attraction. I think the timing and the lay of the land was different because you had so many regional territories, and they would see the midgets, maybe once, twice a year. Maybe if you lived in the New York area, you might see them a little bit more frequency. But they came in as a novelty attraction. They were gone, and it's kind of like the Harlem Globetrotters. They're great to go see, but they're not something that you would want to go back week after week.
Right. If they were on TV every week. Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work as something that's just, a whole division on every week.
Yeah, and I think, Vince has had a history of having a tendency to do a lot of things in excess, to the point that, they eventually fail because of it. I've always believed in less is more and doing things in moderation, but it's hard in today's world because the public, I don't care if it's wrestling, music, or any other forms of entertainment, look at the fortune they spend to produce some of these first-run movies with all the special effects, and they're in the theater for a few weeks, and then they're gone. Of course, they get a secondary run with pay-per-view and later with DVD, but a lot of them don't last very long. And the public is always craving for something new.
Right. Do you think that hurts? Now there's only really one company. The guys will get burnt out quicker being on TV so much. You see the same guys every week.
I think so, and the great. That's just a small piece of the much greater problem. That still wrestling is talent-driven business. And as I've just alluded to, the public is constantly craving for something new. It was that way back when I was active as a wrestler in my career. No matter what you did, week in, week out, it eventually reached a point where the people would say, and a lot of times it wasn't a specific criticism of you or what was going on. It's just like, it was a general statement like, well, when are we going to see something new or see somebody new?
Yeah.
And in those days, there were so many small regional promotions that gave an opportunity for young wrestlers to gain experience, and as is always the case in any endeavor, I think the cream eventually rises to the top, and so the better performers, the better wrestlers moved to the bigger territories and became bigger stars in the business. Now that whole playing field is wiped away, and so you don't have the training ground. And that's not to be a knock on any of the independent wrestling circuits or any of the wrestlers that are out there on the independent circuits, but in reality, you cannot wrestle once a week and not appear on television and not appear wrestling different wrestlers with different styles on a night-in, night-out basis and be able to take your skill level to where you need to be.
Right, prepared to be.
So the quality of wrestling is what it was. I think that's why we go to these legend shows 20 years after the fact, and the fans come back, and there's a tremendous void and a large percentage of the population that's disenchanted with what they see today, and they would rather come back and come with forgiving eyes and see some of the wrestlers that certainly are no longer in their prime, but are the names that they remember so fondly, and to see them one last time.
Right. It kind of reminds me of like Tough Enough, where the people will see these guys on TV every week, but they're not really ready to be on WWE TV once the 6 weeks are over.
Yeah, and again, it's just another example of the problem, and you're absolutely right.
Good question from the message board, Barbie.
Let's see what we got. There was
I'd like to know who had the weasel suit first, you or Bobby Heenan?
Bobby the Brain Heenan, it was first with everything. I should say nothing is original in wrestling, and probably if you pin Bobby down, he saw it somewhere before. I never sat down and asked him, but I know that he had the Weasel moniker long before it was ever attached to me, and everybody. I don't think I'd use the word copies, but if Bobby Heenan does something and is successful with it and it's entertaining, and I'm somewhere else and Bobby Heenan's not there and it seems to fit the scenario, I think if anything, it's a compliment to somebody like Bobby Heenan to then run with something similar.
Just my borrow.
I'm realistic about, again, the whole thing about imitating but not duplicating. I'm not saying that I would have or did do it as well as Bobby did, but it was something that was entertaining. It was well received. I did it in a couple places, and I had a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah. Another thing you said in your book was the time you put on like women's underwear when you know like the guy was going to pull your pants off.
Yeah.
Then it reminded me of Goldust later on.
Yeah, it's a challenge week in and week out. Doing things to entertain the people, and it's a challenge when you're coming back to the same towns week in and week out, which you've mentioned, and it's easy for the fans to get tired of you, so you're always struggling to do something to bring a smile on their face or to buy one more week, and then you try to think of something new and fresh, and I was always willing to accept the challenge of trying to come up with something new, something unexpected, and that just happened to be one of them.
Yeah, you said about coming back to the same towns. Are you surprised, like CCW does so well since they, they're pretty much in the same territory, but they get good crowds every show.
Yeah, and again, I think it's symptomatic of the feeling of a lot of wrestling fans that are disenchanted with what they see today, and they have very fond memories of the ECW product. I'm not so sure that you could keep coming back to the same arenas with great frequency, but if you get that balance of bringing back wrestlers and trying to change some of the faces, it's a style, and a name much like the Horsemen, and I think the fans will come out and continue to support it.
Yeah.